All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sage Turner, Chair of the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium. I'd like to welcome you to our June 11th meeting, 2025. All consortium members and staff are participating virtually today. To help you follow along, I'll be speaking each part of the agenda for those participating and listening in. We're streaming live on our virtual engagement hub. You can find that on the front page of the city's website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by calling 855-925-2801, and meeting code is 8763. Let's see, we also have an option for people to call in and comment live, should you wish to. So the process is similar. You'll call in using the number 855-925-2801 and meeting code 8763. And to get into the speaker queue, you'll need to push *3 and you'll be muted, but you'll hear the meeting going on. I'm going to go through and do a roll call kind of attendance and introduce everybody. Board members, as I say your name and staff, please come off mute and say a quick hello. Let's see, Jessica Trotman, are you with us today? I don't think I saw her join. Savannah Parrish? No Shannon Tuck. Did Karen join? Nope, not yet. Sam Starbomb, I saw Sam.
Yep. Hey, everybody, just coming off mute, and I'm here. It's good to see you all again.
Jennifer Miranda?
Good morning, everyone.
Eric Rufa?
Yeah, good morning.
Liz Hanson? Did Liz join us? No. John Connett?
Good morning. I'm here.
Jonathan Jones?
Good morning.
Did Matt Cable join us? I saw Matt Card, I think. Matt Cable? Emily Brewer? Ricky Hurley?
We're here.
Jeffrey Adams? Ashley Minery? Who are we missing? Alice Berry? They're all so small on my screen.
I just admitted.
Just arrived.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay. No worries. Rod Honeycutt? And Caitlin Finkel?
I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Oh, good. Sorry, I can't. Some of you are just icons for me, so I can't really see you. Okay. So I do believe we have quorum. Let me count my little roll call. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and myself. We do. So let's go ahead and do an approval of the minutes. The actually minutes for the last meeting.
This is Aaron Bland with the City of Brevard. I'm in Emily's place today.
Let's see if I have. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
This is Karen Keena. I'm here.
Oh, good. We were looking for you earlier. Great. Sorry, just a couple folks rolling in late. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We're going to move on to approving the agenda for the minutes for the last meeting, and they were included in your package. Any comments, changes, or may I get a motion?
I move. John Connett moves to approve the minutes.
Thank you, John. And a second?
A second.
Thank you, Sam. And unfortunately, we have to do a roll call vote. I'm going to do you in order of my screen now that I can see some of you. Sam Starbomb.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Matt Card.
Aye.
Ricky.
Aye.
Mary. No? Karen? Yeah, I got you, Mary. Little delay there. Karen?
Aye.
Alice?
Aye.
Caitlin?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
I think I got everybody. If I missed you, speak up. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we're moving on to the next item, which is an update from Land and Sky Regional Council on the comp plan and the housing assessment data. Who's leading us through this?
I'll take the lead on that.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
Hopefully I can share my screen here. James, I'm sorry. I thought I had to share this with you, but it looks like I can just do this through the meeting now. Let me see if I can pop this up for everyone.
Thanks, Jacob. We've got it handy in case we need to pop it up for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me see.
Okay, I will, it's loading up here.
Well, let's see if Jacob can do it so he can drive. But if he can't do it, we'll have it up for him.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate that. I'm trying to get it to share right now, but I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Got it. Hopefully this will come up for everyone. So hopefully everybody can see that. Let me actually.
You might get it in present mode, Jacob.
Okay, can everybody see that now?
We're
We
seeing
can
it.
see it. You're not in present mode,
Oh, okay.
but we can see it. Slideshow maybe, or what do you
yeah.
got?
Hopefully, it looks like I've got it on mine. I don't know if it's big enough for everybody to read here. Did it
I'm
update
good to
now?
go forward. Go ahead.
Okay, great, excellent. Well, anyway, so most should have gotten that housing needs assessment to take a look at all the data that was offered there. If you remember from my last presentation, here is sort of the sneak peek of information we got from a survey that Bowen had done of stakeholders in our region. It was 48 different responses from all of our counties that represent the consortium. And
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. We're still seeing the not presenter view, and so if you're on the first or second slide, we're like 3 slides down is the one that we can see.
Okay. Well, I've got it in presenter mode on mine. Did you guys see that?
I figured. Yeah. Just try share your screen again, and then just either just navigate to the first slide that you want to talk to.
I got you.
But we were seeing like slide 4 or something.
All right. Okay. Sorry about this, everyone. Let me get this going up.
It may be thinking you're in a 2-screen mode, and
I think so.
Yeah, but I know you're in the little booth in our office, so I know you only have 1 screen. I don't know why it's doing that to you.
Yeah, that's odd. So let me pull that up again one more time.
Yeah.
And all right, so it's got that. Let me go
So
to
if we have to keep it in this view, that's fine. But I just knew you were like, we were seeing a few slides down.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate that because I was on presenting, but I guess it just didn't want that for everyone. Oh, excuse me, but thank you for letting me know. Is this do y'all see the change now?
We can see, we can see. We're still seeing the kind of normal mode, but I think everyone can read that. So we'll just go with that. But you'll just need to click through each slide so we get.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Well, so this is like the background of the previous slide here that we had. It's kind of going through that survey of everyone that was in stakeholder in our region. Those are the big barriers and issues that were coming forth was rent affordability, home purchase affordability. And of course, the biggest barriers to that were like cost of land and availability of land. But with those two sort of focuses on the common issues that were experienced by rent affordability and home purchase affordability, what that survey went to break out even further was what the priorities should be for renters. And this is where what we talked about last time for sort of our strategic goals is not necessarily doing tenant-based rental assistance, but doing what was at least talked about in the stakeholder survey was doing a security deposit assistance, which is great. I mean, that was a large share of the respondents. Over half of them said that was the biggest priority was doing renter security deposit assistance, which we could relay that into doing tenant-based rental assistance, over, month-to-month basis. But that was at least one category that was selected as security deposit. Now, of this survey, I'm not aware if maybe Bowen didn't offer that as an option of saying month-to-month rental, but it's at least reassuring to see that the security deposit aspect of it was a high priority. Followed by down payment assistance, another thing we touched on as well. So from this survey, home buyer down payment assistance was the top response from respondents. Over, almost 3/4 of them said that was the top priority. And then second that with home repair assistance. So both of these priorities, or all 3 of them really to say, from the stakeholder survey indicated that rent security deposit assistance, home buyer down payment assistance, and home repair assistance were 3 of the biggest issues to focus on based off what the stakeholders in our region said. And furthermore on that subject, what the priority of housing construction types would be, and it just barely outpaced new construction, was actually renovating and rehabilitating existing home. I mean, the new construction still was a close priority with that, but as you can tell here, I know, hopefully you guys can still see since it's not in presenter mode that the weighted score that just barely eked out in new construction on repair, renovation, revitalizing existing housing, which is great. That's sort of what we kind of were leaning into, still keeping new construction on the table for everyone, but that rehabilitation was a higher priority than actually doing new construction, which kind of goes further into the recommendations that Bowen had in the housing needs assessment. Now, there are a lot more of them that were listed. Some were kind of common sense stuff like marking our area, exploring other programs, but to follow up with the goals we discussed earlier, the realistic attainable short-term goals of doing preservation and development of residential using, so making sure that we keep our naturally occurring affordable housing, was excellent. And another recommendation on there was enhancing the existing incentives we already have. So we saw we had a lot of work done with Helpmate, Habitat, mountain housing opportunities, all those. Well, I guess mountain housing opportunities didn't do much for the tenant-based rental assistance or down payment assistance, but at least they were more focused on doing new units. If anything, I know they could do some rehab or repair. If someone's mountain housing opportunities, I'm sorry if I'm misconstruing what work you do, but at least that's there as a rehabilitation aspect of it. And finally, exploring more other policies and programs besides what we have in place. And a big thing of that was including first-time home buyers, which would be down payment assistance. So from that sort of needs assessment, there's other ones that were identified, but at least from what I gathered from this showed that based on the goals we talked about prior to, there was a lot of support from Bowen to do the tenant-based rental assistance, down payment assistance, and of course, housing rehabilitation. And I'm happy to keep this up or answer any questions anybody may have, but I can stop sharing as well. I don't know if anybody wants to see these slides further.
Comments or questions from you all or a particular side? It looks like Matt Cable just joined us. Welcome, Matt. I'll mark you as present. Can you go back up to what looks like the third slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this one was fascinating me. I just found it in the appendix too on IX5, but I hadn't gotten that far in the study yet.
That's a lot to read, that's for sure. I know I've been digging in it quite a bit past few
Yeah.
since we've got it.
That's interesting. Okay. Any questions or comments from anyone as we all kind of absorb this? Rental registry came up within Asheville City Council meetings yesterday too. And I know in our area, Just Economics has had a platform. I don't know. It may reach into y'all's other areas. I'm not sure if they're Buncombe only. But it looks like there might be some opportunity to grow that, which could be helpful. Okay, Jonathan Jones, go ahead.
And yeah, I guess as I'm looking at this list, I'm seeing a lot of needs related to rental assistance, but also just want to recognize that not all of these are activities that could be funded with home funding. A lot of them are more public service oriented programs that might be more appropriate for something like CDBG.
Yeah, and that's why we were talking about it yesterday, because we were just reviewing CDBG numbers and figures and where to put them. But so, yeah, there are some things we can glean from this though. And it looks like what we've been talking about is headed in the right direction, backed up by the study, or maybe you all already knew that. Any other comments or questions before we keep moving?
Will this information, this is Karen, will this information be shared with Department of Environmental Quality and Department of Commerce? For those of us communities that are not entitlement, this would be great information for them to have in hand to see what are the needs of our communities out here in the West.
Yeah, Karen, that's a really great question. And we do want this report to serve as a resource for everyone across the entirety of the consortium. It is still technically in its draft form right now. In terms of it being like an official document that will come with our submission of the consolidated plan, which this is a part of the consolidated plan to HUD. At that point, it's kind of a resource that can be used throughout. So we've shared it with the consortium at this point. Councilwoman Turner, and I can't remember if we've shared this with the full council yet, but it will be part of the council agenda on June 24th. It'll be part of that package that comes to council at that point. But we have not publicized this. Obviously, y'all have it in hand and can review it and share it, as you wish. But from a City of Asheville perspective, it's not going to have the official, like, this is the Bowen report until it's been approved by council on June 24th.
So next, on the 19th, I will be going to my board meeting, my Department of Commerce board meeting. Can I take this with me and just have a conversation with the CDBG staff?
You are more than welcome to.
Okay, thank you.
I would, Karen. I mean, at this point, it's been emailed to us, and it's a public document. And then last night at City Council, I had it on my desk at the dais, and everyone was like, "Ooh!" So I've had to email it to them. So sorry if it got to them faster, but They saw it and I was like, yeah, I'll send it. All right. Anything else on this particular set of information? Okay. Let's keep moving. Just a second. I feel like I've got a lawnmower in the background. I hope you guys can't hear that. All right. So, we've got our next agenda item is item number 4 for those of you listening at home, which is discuss a visit and presentation from Patrick Bowen and his research team on this recent housing study. So is the goal here to try and set a date, or do we have some dates with Patrick in mind? What are you guys thinking there, staff?
Do you want me to jump in, James?
Sure.
Right now it's just open-ended. Wanted to get some ideas about, he said he would come, he would do multiple presentations, ideally, in a consolidated time frame. And I think the ask is, are there any upcoming events or anything that we would want to coordinate with that's already on the books? Or, are we looking at, just kind of planning something standalone? We certainly want to do this post getting all of the comp plan submitted to HUD, because that's really the biggest priority. But Patrick is available to do. I know last time we did a kind of a big public presentation at the Collider in the evening that was pretty well attended. I don't remember. I mean,
I think the ADA did that, the nonprofit. It was part of their speaker series, maybe.
They may have. You're right.
And they might have grabbed
Right.
him for that. And
Yes, you're absolutely.
Mary, it makes me wonder though, because I know the county and the city are talking, Buncombe County and city leadership are talking about getting together for an event of some sorts. Maybe maybe it could be a formal meeting of this commission if there's not an event, but it could be held somewhere and talk. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you want some one-on-one time with Patrick? Do we want to get him into the community so more people can get a hold of his brain? A little bit of both.
I mean, I wondered specifically for City of Hendersonville and City of Brevard. I know both communities are doing a lot of outreach around housing, and so maybe if you have an event coming up as a part of the strategic housing plan process, or Aaron as a part of anything that y'all are doing in Brevard, for example, and obviously not to exclude others. I just know, both.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I like the idea of doing a group thing because it's a regional problem. However, I'm afraid that if we did it centric, that some of the folks who need to hear it in our area would not go. I'm just,
Yep.
Just because some folks just need an excuse, right? Mary, I like your idea. We're getting ready to roll out our strategic housing plan, or we're finishing it up. If we could, maybe at least have something down this way on the back end of what we did when we did, we had our speaker to kick off the plan, and we could do one at the end. I'd like to do that that would probably be the way I'd like to do it on our end, kind of have a fit, put a finale on it.
Okay.
That's a thought for us.
What about City of Asheville folks? We had been talking pre-Helene about a developers forum, which would stretch into all counties. In the past, this is something we had done where it was just a day-long event. We had speakers of various capacities, and there was also input gathered. So it was an opportunity to say, hey, all of you that are out there working in the community to become builders and help us with this problem, what are the things you're, finding that are hindering you? And then also we have this plethora of information. I wonder if something similar, I don't know that that's scheduled anymore since Helene, but maybe that's the kind of format that could work here. Because then you get the people that really need to do the work in the room too.
I think that's a good idea. One thing I was thinking is in terms of location and opportunity is Blue Ridge Community College is kind of a Henderson County, Transylvania, convenient location where I've been to regional type events there that focus on this type of thing. So I think that's something we could explore is finding something that is a regional housing consortium sponsored type activity that's hosted at a location that's something like Blue Ridge Community College. So we'd be happy to start that conversation. We can certainly, consider it like a developers forum. as well as a new Bowen report. Let's come hear from Patrick Bowen. Mary, is that something that we could work with Patrick to get some potential dates later in the summer that might work well to get Patrick to come?
Yeah, I'll ask him. I will definitely get dates from him. And he obviously wants to be here and wants to present, so I know, he'll make himself available. So yes, I'll get dates and we can continue this conversation, between us in terms of next steps. But obviously, if, like John, I'm looking on the city's website right now. I'm not seeing a date yet for like the release of the plan.
Yeah.
So, I'll be talking to Angie and Daniel.
It sounds like official release will be the June 24th, 13 days, just because we'll accept it.
Sorry, I meant for their strategic housing plan.
Oh, okay.
No, yes. In the con plan itself, yes, will be City of Asheville's council meeting on the 24th. But I can check with them, John, on Thursday.
Yeah, well,
tomorrow.
I don't know that
check in with them.
Yeah, Mayor, we hadn't set a date, but I think if Patrick's coming, like I said, we kicked the thing off with Shane Phillips, and the affordable city. And if we bookend it with Patrick, I think that'd be a good way to, it puts pressure on us to get it done. So,
okay. So if anybody has, I'll check on that with your team, John, tomorrow. And if anyone else has any dates, or anything kind of coming up, then we can kind of take all that information plus Patrick's availability and crunch it and see what comes out.
Mary, if we could do something similar, at AB Tech in Madison County, I think that would be great.
Okay.
It'd be like a tour.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Patrick's open to that, but I think that would be good if we could, do something that's in the Henderson, Transylvania area and then get us on the north side of Buncombe, Madison.
Yeah. Yeah, he's game. He said he's fine to do multiple presentations, just ideally, consolidate the time frame. So that it's, he's making one trip and spending a few days here.
We're lucky he's coming. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first started working at the county 3-4 years ago and learned of the Bowen report. So it's really great that we've got a new Bowen report that can serve as a great resource, not just for City of Asheville or the Home Consortium, but it's got really great economic data in there as well. It's not just a housing assessment. It's a pretty good resource for all things community development, economic development, and housing too. So we're excited.
It's a really strong study. So anything else you need from us? Is there a possibility that our consortium will meet in the time range she's here and we'll have a little one-on-one, or do we want anything like that?
That's kind of what we were targeting. We met last month in May with a suggestion to start trying to meet quarterly. We called it an additional meeting here in June because we felt like we wanted to get a little bit more feedback and time to digest the con plan, get this housing assessment before we come away with any kind of programming recommendations from this group. But yeah, we do want to target like a August-ish time for the consortium to meet again as part of a regular meeting cycle. So that could be around the time Patrick could potentially come. And that might give him enough runway to find a good time that works for him in August.
Yeah, I'm starting the email to him now.
Thanks, Mary.
Tell him
I think that's a great idea with school being back in. So the likelihood of people families still being on vacation that would want to participate so that the community at large can participate. That sounds like August sounds like a great idea.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. Great discussion, y'all. Let's keep moving because the big stuff is next. So we're going to move on. Is everybody good? Okay. And thank you, Mary. It's exciting to have him come visit again. All right, item number 5 on the agenda, moving right along, is discussion and recommendation for programs in this year's action plan. And James, is that you?
That'll be me.
Okay.
Are y'all able to see my screen? This looks good.
Yep, you're in presentation mode.
Great. So this was our agenda for today. We're on to cruising right through down to item number 5, which is to discuss program recommendations for programs to be funded in the 25-26 action plan. So looking at our OMAP assessment upcoming funding cycle, we're proposing several options for y'all to discuss. The goal is to fund programs at levels that have an impact and reduce the number of programs that we implement. As y'all mentioned a little bit ago, all of the housing assessment data is really great, and it says that there's a very wide and varied need across our region for different types of housing investments, from supply side to demand side, from renters to homeowners. However, we know that we have limited resources here with the home program, so we're proposing to be very strategic and streamlined and to only fund programs at levels that have an impact. And taking into the context of all other resources that are coming online over the next 5 years, this is a 5-year consolidated plan that we're bringing to y'all, as well as just this first year of the action plan. So we're wanting to discuss, what to do with the $1.5 million that are available to us from our 2025 grant, as well as uncommitted program income and a rescinded Maribel Award. At y'all's last meeting, y'all approved a substantial amendment to cancel that project. That was a project, just as a reminder, that rescinded that $500,000 that we awarded several years ago. That is going to be part of City Council's agenda on the 24th. So that is still pending that approval, but this group has already recommended that that project be canceled and freeze up that funding in the next funding cycle. So we're proposing 4 options. The first is status quo, which is what we did in this past year's action plan, was to fund only rental construction. The second option would be to do the same thing, but also recognize the need for tenant-based rental assistance. We have a strong history of supporting rental assistance programs that rely on home funding. So we would propose this is an option to maintain that. Even though we didn't do that in the last funding cycle, it is something that's been part of what we do with our home funding. Another option is to do tenant-based rental assistance and home repair. So that's focused on rental assistance for renters, and then home repair preservation for homeowners. The fourth option is rehabilitation and down payment assistance. This is a heavy side on homeownership and not on rental or renters. So doing preservation type activities and then helping to have new home buyers with down payment assistance to purchase a home. So let's look at this in a little bit further detail. Is this first option, again, this is just status quo, rental construction only, 100% of funds going toward that, with an expected outcome of about 8 units being built using home funds. Now, of course, we always expect that these funds are part of a leveraging package as part of a gap to fill as part of a bigger project. But these are the outcomes we would expect to be home dedicated units. We tend to see about a 10-to-1 leverage with rental construction. So for what you might see with 8 units being home funded, we would usually see about 80 total units coming online as part of any leverage package of a affordable construction project. Option 2 is to do the same thing, providing significant funding for new construction, but also recognizing the need for rental assistance in our community. And the great thing about rental assistance is that with home funding, unlike CDBG funding, here at the City of Asheville, CDBG funding is very restricted to use in the city limits of Asheville for residents of the City of Asheville. Home funding does not have that type of restriction. We can use these funds across the entire consortium area without being concerned as to where the tenant resides. And just a reminder that TBRA can be used for security deposit assistance. This was mentioned a little while ago as part of the housing assessment, that was one of the big needs for renters in our area. So the TBRA, just a reminder, it does not have to just be for monthly rental assistance. It can actually be serve to reduce the barriers for getting into a unit initially and helping to pay for that security deposit. And in the other options, we don't recommend reducing new construction funding below this level. What we've found over the last few years is that construction costs have risen significantly in our area, and our home allocation has been reduced significantly over the past few years. We don't recommend funding a multifamily housing construction program at anything less than this. We've had projects come back to us. We'll discuss another one in a minute that has come back to us for further funding assistance. What we found is that we'll provide funding for a project, and then the next year they'll have another gap identified, and we'll need to top that up. Funding anything at any project less than about $700,000 or $800,000 really isn't making much of a difference for new construction type projects these days. So we don't recommend funding. If we're going to do new construction, if we're going to support new rental construction, we do not recommend funding at anything less than this 75% amount, 1.1 million. So that's why in program option 3, you don't see any funding for rental construction. This pivots our program more toward that rental side, keeping that rental assistance, but then looking at homeowner rehab. So that's preservation of existing homeowner units in our area to do repairs not related to Hurricane Helene. We would be looking for the state's CDBG DR program as well as the city's program to do home repair work above and beyond what insurance is doing related to Hurricane Helene. But this is to address the significant backlog that we know is out there of homeowner repair and rehab that needs to be done that's aside from hurricane-related damages.
With this, are we assuming that these rental assistance will not be also going after low-income housing tax credits, the LIHTC?
The rental assistance can go to LIHTC type projects, but it tends to go, it can provide for single family housing assistance, but it can also go toward multifamily housing assistance. Usually with those LIHTC projects, you'll see them often do project-based rental assistance at those units if they are getting any kind of rental assistance subsidy to help subsidize the construction of that project and the operating cost ongoing. TBRA for this home program for home can be pretty flexible. It can go for single family units. You use the single family units, or it can go to multifamily. It's tied to the renter itself, not necessarily to the project or the unit.
The developer.
Right.
Right. I like the broadness of the home funds that, like you just stated. So I just wanted to get some clarification there.
Thank you, Karen.
James, would that also include the security deposit assistance?
Yes, tenant-based rental assistance can be used for security deposit assistance. And in fact, we see that used frequently in our programs that we've supported in the past with TBRA. That really is a good tool for reducing that barrier for folks to get into a unit in the first place. But I will mention that tenant-based rental assistance through home is limited to a 2-year leap timeline. Rentals assistance cannot be provided to a household for longer than 2 years. It can be extended, but any agreement between a landlord and a renter cannot exceed 2 years. So it is time limited. And it can also be used for utility assistance as well. There are provisions within there to help with utilities.
Let me ask another question while I have you. So on the previous slide, you were talking about, our past allocations for these LIHTC projects. Can you say again, so on average, like how much are we contributing to a project in a cycle? You kind of threw out some numbers. It doesn't have to be exact, but are we generally contributing more than $1 million?
We are generally not doing more than $1 million to a single project. However, we do have a project right now in Brevard that has just gone to closing. I've been out of the office. It was supposed to close while I was gone. But Fairhaven Meadows was a project that we provided 1.2, almost 1.3 million to get it across the finish line. That is an exception to what we typically do. We've historically funded projects, anywhere from 400 up to 800,000. But what we've seen over the past few years is funding anything at those lower levels just isn't making it worth going through all the rigmarole of participating in the home program for developers. They really need to see that return, that larger gap filled with this funding. It's a fairly onerous program to deal with as a developer. So reducing or making sure that we're making a sizable investment in a project is what we're proposing. So that we're actually funding them at levels that fills the gap in the first place, and they're not having to come back in subsequent years and request further funding.
Yeah, I guess for me, when I look at this slide, I was thinking, well, what's 500,000 in TBRA and about $1 million, and is that enough? I was just kind of thinking out loud, but that's why I asked. Okay, let's keep moving Karen, go ahead.
I guess, could you give us an idea of what the other funding sources are that they're bringing to the table? My concern is that they're depending on home funds as their primary, and I don't see home funds being at a level that we can support that level of funding assistance.
Are you talking about for construction, Karen?
Yes.
So what we typically see is about a 10-to-1 ratio of other funding sources to home sources. So we're usually about 10% of the overall stack. And when we talk about outcomes at far column, those are the number of units that we typically expect to see with about a $200,000 per unit investment in projects. That's about what we've seen over the last few years. But we would expect to see many more units coming that are affordable as part of the larger project that aren't necessarily home funded. But you would typically see with this, you might see a 60-unit overall outcome where home funds were used to leverage and fill that gap for further financing. And there's all kinds of different sources. I mean, LIHTC is one for sure. Private debt is another. Other local funding loans. I know City of Brevard has provided some gap financing for the Fairhaven Meadows project in the shape of a loan.
USDA is also another.
USDA for rural development for sure is definitely another one too. So there's a lot of different funding sources out there, and home really is intended to be a gap filler. It is in terms of in this context of rental construction, it's not intended to be the lead or the overall source of funding. It's kind of that funding that comes in at the very last to fill that gap to make sure the project can get over the finish line.
Okay, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions before we keep moving?
This is Caitlin. I have a question on option number 3, I believe it was. Is there a reason that the split was decided at 25 rental assistance and 75 rehab, or could those numbers be adjusted?
We can certainly adjust it. The reason that we proposed 25 for tenant-based rental assistance is that to fund it at a greater level, we've actually found that some of our providers have struggled to spend all of the rental assistance money, mostly due to a lack of supply in our area and finding landlords and units for them that actually meet the affordability requirements and meet many of the other home requirements for decent, safe, and sanitary. So funding it at a higher level, we could potentially see it being underutilized. So we had initially thought about doing this as a 50-50 on option 3, which would have put TBRA at about $800,000. We just were a little concerned to fund it at that high of a level. We know that there's a very big need for tenant-based rental assistance in our community, but with what we've seen over the past few years is that there has been a little bit of a struggle to actually find the units that meet the home requirements and get folks in there. We can of course go back and if we find that further rental assistance is needed, we can change that. But I think this was just a good starting level so that we didn't find ourselves with money sitting unused in our program.
Thanks for the explanation.
And James, since I don't have these slides, I don't know what's coming next, but I can see the next item on the agenda is a $300,000 request. Would that be coming from this pool that we're talking about? Because are we really talking about these numbers?
That would be coming from this, yeah. So that
So when
would
we
be,
say in context, when we want to have enough money to really back a project this fall that's awarded, like a LIHTC project, then we're really not talking about 1.2 million. We might be talking about 900,000.
around that, yeah.
Okay. Do you have another option that we're going to review?
Yes, this is the last one.
Okay.
So the last option is focused on home ownership alone. So 50% for down payment assistance for homeowners, and then 50% for homeowner rehab. So this gets you into reducing barriers for folks in households that enter into homeownership, but also to keep people who are housed in their homes through the preservation of their unit through rehabilitation of the housing stock. So we know that there's definitely a need for this in the community. This is something that we've seen consistent need for. It's just a matter of which other would we propose to do. So we wouldn't propose funding 50% of our allocation for rental construction. We might be able to do one project with rental construction at 50%. We don't really recommend funding at anything, less than what we've proposed previously at 75. And then funding TBRA at 50%, again, that gets you close to that 800,000. So this is the combination that we found would work best if you're going to do homeowner support down payment assistance at 50%, homeowner rehab at 50%.
Okay.
So,
the goal here is for us to
four
kind of,
options that-
oh, great.
that were-
That's so helpful.
Yeah, so you can have all four of them here for you. We'd appreciate y'all's thoughts or anything any other takeaways on this.
Well, again, I want to point out this 300,000, because if we're about to get to an agenda item and change that, then these numbers really change. Jonathan Jones, are you commenting on that?
Well, I guess I was going to ask about clarification about that budget. The one of the previous slides mentioned this is for 2025. Is this the end of our most recent comp plan, or is this going to be the first year of our upcoming 5-year plan? Like, just thinking about the budget of where that fits into the process.
It's funky because it's technically this funding is from prior, but we're moving into the new con plan. So it's an interesting time right now where we have to get this plan submitted, but we're also coming with what needs to be in the action plan for what we're going to undertake over the next year. So the 300,000 is, again, that would come from the $500,000 that was rescinded from Maribel, which was a new construction type activity. So we would really try to keep things not too different from what that was kind of already done in the past in the prior action plan. So what we're doing is canceling that activity and moving it to a new one, which is would be another new construction type activity.
Well, and because we didn't all do our typical spring activities, I don't know if there are active projects in your communities that may be awarded this fall. Do we know how many applications are out from the area? Interesting.
I
Okay,
do not.
John, you have a hand up, and maybe you know one in your area.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I appreciate you keep bringing up the 300,000 because I'm really conflicted. The project we'll talk about in the next item is under construction, supported by city and county, and there's the gap. I'd like to fund that, but then as part of this discussion, I'm leaning toward changing our model to one of the other options other than all new construction. So I don't know if anybody else is conflicted that way too, but I am a little conflicted, and maybe James can tell me we can separate it as it relates to this, because I want to get this project finished that is under construction and moving, but also I want to talk about going forward, changing our options a little bit, because I think that the model is shifting in the region a little bit about where we need to put our money. So
just food for
I
thought there.
I wholeheartedly agree, John. And I know just in our community specifically, we have other funding that can help some of the other new construction. So I'm winning that as well. Karen, you threw your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm following up with John's question and or thoughts. Is it an option to us voting on the next item before we move forward with this budget, since it hinges everything that we are proposing for this? I feel like if we do this before making a decision on the other, we're kind of going into it a bit $300,000 blind.
I think that's probably wise, and we
Yeah.
appreciate y'all highlighting that. That's probably the best way to go forward.
Okay, so just for agenda purposes and those of you following along, we're still discussing item 5, and we want to come to a conclusion on how we want to fund which option here. But what we're going to do is briefly pause on this item. We're going to jump to item 6, which is a request, as John mentioned, that is an existing project under construction that's hit some snags, and we want to potentially help it, and it will change the numbers that are on the screen. So we're going to jump to item number 6 real quick. And that is a request from Hack for Apple Ridge. Who's going to speak to this?
I'll speak to this, and then I'll be happy to, if anyone else would like to comment, discuss. So Apple Ridge is a project that we funded with $600,000. It's located in Hendersonville. It's a 100% affordable unit project. Anticipate closing in August. It's a mixed use or a mixed housing type development, but there is a single family portion and a multifamily portion. The single family portion, I believe, has already begun construction. They've seen a $1.4 million cost increase from their original estimates. Again, this is pretty similar to what we've seen over the past few years. For example, with our Fairhaven Meadows project, they came, over the past couple of years, we started funding them, and every couple, after 2 years of working through everything with them, they had a $2 million cost increase. So they are requesting an additional $300,000 for home support. $300,000 is the maximum they could request without triggering a substantial amendment to their initial funding. This is what they've come to us asking. Now, they could potentially ask for more. That would trigger a further review by the Asheville City Council should they request any more than $300,000, and it would require further HUD approval as well. The $300,000 is 50% of their initial funding amount. That's what our threshold is for substantial amendments. If they were to request any more, we would have to go through a much more a further approval process. With this amount, we can take y'all's recommendation and implement this at the staff level. But that's really kind of all the information I have at this point, is that they have a $1.4 million cost increase from their original estimates, and they're requesting an additional $300,000 in home support, which is less than the substantial amendment.
Thank you, James. I imagine that their increases are across the board, but did they give any detail? I'm always kind of just curious if it's materials, if it's financing, if it's interest rates, if it's, do they indicate it all?
I have a pro forma. I don't have the pro forma available, but it's across the board, is my understanding. Yes, interest rates. Yes, building materials for sure.
Okay. And I saw Sam, then I saw John Connor, then Jonathan Jones. So Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know that we're focusing on this request, but it is really hard to separate it from the previous agenda item number 5, which is where we're looking at funding. In that discussion, you had mentioned that you would not want to slip beneath 1.192 million in funding. If we're taking out this $300,000, are we then at a level where that doesn't make sense for that number? Is that something that we should be considering with this request? And also, do we anticipate, there's a lot of discussion about them potentially coming back. 300,000 and a 1.4 million gap really isn't that much money, which is astonishing. Do we anticipate they'll come back for additional funds?
I don't anticipate that they would come back for more, Sam. With an anticipated closing in August, I think they want to have this thing locked down, get their interest rates locked, and be ready to move forward with construction, so that they don't have to, worry about the further cost increases. Now back to your question about, should we fund new construction program, and this would reduce the available amount by $300,000 down to, about, if you do nothing but, let's go back and look here real quick. If you do nothing but option one, and that's nothing but new construction, that reduces that down to about 1.2 million. And yeah, we can definitely do that as a program. We could do, potentially 2 projects with that amount. I would lean towards one. With the option 2, that would reduce it down to about 800,000, 900,000. My math is fuzzy today. It's my first day back in the office after about 5 days out. But we would potentially be able to do like one further project in new construction.
Yeah, thank you. That was really what I was asking, is does this effectively take 2, 3, and 4 off the table for the discussion of funding choices and allocation?
I don't think it does, Sam. I think it just reduces the number of actual projects that we would fund. And that's kind of a model I would like to get us to with the home program, is to fund programs and projects at higher levels, so that we're really concentrating our investments to get those projects over the finish line, and not funding them at levels that do. I know it's hard to think $300,000 and $500,000 is a small amount, but when it comes to affordable housing construction, it's expensive, and it requires a ton of subsidy, and it's only become much more expensive over the last few years. And our allocation has been reduced this year by about $300,000 from the prior year. And we don't expect it to go up really over the next 5 years. So I would expect us, I would propose that for home funding, if we're going to be doing new construction in option 1, we might do 2 projects. If we're going to do new construction in option 2, we'll most likely just do 1. And that's taking into account the reduction of 300,000.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, you're like,
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that is why I was asking about averages we've allocated in the past, the same math in my head. So John, go ahead.
yeah, just a couple of contexts on this project. The city is a partner in it. Madam Chair, your question about what the cost overruns are, a lot of it is infrastructure. We've seen tremendous cost in with having to build a sewer pump station, the sewer that to provide sewer to this area, and road construction, and mainly infrastructure costs is just gone through the roof for that. So, I mean, the project is going to go forward. Sam, to your question, is is 300,000 enough? We've done some value engineering, and I don't want to speak for Meg or Hack if they're on the call, but we've done some value engineering and got that 1.4 to a more reasonable number, and so 300,000 tremendously helps. The project's going to go forward. If we're able to get home funding, then it does allow us to not to increase the cost of the homes in the single family portion to a point that it is starting to take it out of affordability. So it really helps us close the gap and keep those homes affordable under the USDA program they're using. Again, I don't want to speak out of turn if Meg or anybody's on the call, but I think the 300,000 allows us to keep going with the current financing capital stack without putting additional cost on those homes. So
Super helpful. Thank you, John. Jonathan Jones.
Yeah, what is our criteria for projects requesting additional funding? Like we hear projects all the time with gaps. Do we just
It's kind of
recommend
new
them to the city staff? How do we do that?
It's kind of new, as you said, Madam Chair, that's kind of new. And we received a similar request several months ago, not long after Helene, when the consortium was not meeting. And as we reminded y'all at the last meeting, we we took the initiative at the staff level. It's not what we would like to do moving forward, is that we took the initiative to increase a project's funding within that and below the substantial amendment threshold, so that we could ensure that the project was still going to get built. We don't really have like a formal request process, except for us to receive a request and bring it to you, the consortium, for discussion and your recommendation. We don't want to move forward as a presiding jurisdiction at the city of Asheville, making those kind of decisions on our own. We definitely want to bring that to y'all for discussion and for your support, or not, and so that we can have that buy-in and full transparency about how those requests are coming in. So if a project has been funded in the past, they can pretty well send us a request for further support. We can bring that to you, the consortium, and with your support or not, we can move forward with the decision. That's kind of what we're proposing at the city level.
Okay.
And of course, if it's a substantial amendment, that would require further beyond this consortium. If they were requesting $300,001, it would have to go to Asheville City Council for their authorization, and then would have to be submitted to HUD for their review and approval.
And John, for your context, when it comes to city council, the ones that we've had to do, which are few and recent, what we have done is compare them to our table of previous allocations and limits. Did we hit that 30,000 per unit, or et cetera? And if it's within the window of what we typically do, we've moved it forward, because in some cases folks could have applied for more and didn't. Does that make sense? So, but criteria may be a thing we need to start thinking about. Yeah. Okay. So we need to keep moving, and we need to kind of get these guys some direction. So any other thoughts or comments? I will go ahead and voice that I feel like we need to support these projects as they've entered this chaotic time, and they're under construction, and they're good, solid projects underway. Everything else we're about to do is like hopeful, right? And this is already moving. So I want to support increasing the funding. I love keeping it under, at the staff movement level. If it needs to come back to us for more, that's different. But how are others feeling? Are we ready for a motion or a more conversation? Karen?
I think to put some guidelines around this, I would propose that we move forward on this one, but for future projects, so that we're not setting a precedence that this is going to be a standard procedure if you come up short, that we set some guidelines for organizations coming back to the consortium for additional funding. This one is, like we're saying, these were unforeseen cost increases, and let's go forward with this, but recognizing that we need to set some guidelines.
That could be a future agenda item. James, I can't see you so in detail enough to know if you shook your head, but how do you feel about that being a future thing we bring to this group?
I'm shaking my head, yes.
Okay. You're tiny on the big room screen. Okay. Jennifer, your hand went up. Go for it.
First of all, thank you to John for explaining part of the project. Obviously, Henderson County and the city of Hendersonville are definitely committed to this project. Henderson County has designated 1.5 million of ARPA funds towards the water and sewer infrastructure to this housing development. So we would appreciate the support from all of you as well. Thank you.
I can't see which Matt it is, but I see a Matt. Matt Cable, maybe? Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Karen's concerns. I think that I have no issue with the project. I have no issue with providing additional funding to this project. I think it's important that we answer requests. City of Asheville and Buncombe County have historically funded projects, and we have this happen to us as well, where they were coming back to us. So I think we need a formal mechanism, and it's just really so that whoever happens to come first may not be best, right? So you need a process that's really defined to say within our limited resources, a couple of projects might have an additional need. Which of these projects do we want to fund? I don't think we're in that situation right now. I think we have one that we're aware of, and I think it makes sense to support that need given its timeframes, but I definitely wanted to echo and support Karen's comments about, formalizing a process.
Yeah, that's a bit of how I believe this client or project came to us, right? Under discussion of the last one. So, all right. Does anybody feel like they're ready to make a motion? Go ahead, Sam.
I'll butcher it, but I move to approve the request from Apple Ridge for additional funding totaling $300,000 of home funds.
Great. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. We're going to do a roll call vote. I guess I need you off presentation mode because I can't see everyone. It'll be butchered. I'll start with who I can see right now. Alice.
Aye.
Ricky.
Aye.
Jonathan Jones.
Aye.
John Connett.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Aye.
Caitlin.
Hi.
Matt Card.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
Matt Cable.
Our 2 county votes are already in, so
Oh,
they don't have to be
I can
counted.
never keep track of y'all like that in these live
Yeah.
things. Okay.
Thanks,
Myself, I, who am I missing? I've got just some phone numbers and no faces. So if I missed you, you got to speak up. Okay. That moves forward. So yay, Apple Ridge, good luck with the remainder of your gap. It sounds like Matt Cable was suggesting Buncombe County. No, I'm kidding. Can we go back to item 5, please? Those of you following along at home, the thousands of you listening in, we're going backwards to item number 5 to talk about this year's action plan and how we want to divvy up. Maybe we can go back into screen mode with the 4 options. And did anybody Sharpie over it with new numbers yet? Jonathan Jones?
Did this presentation get sent out? I can't seem to find it in my inbox.
I don't think so. I didn't have it either.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to compare notes on
Yeah.
what's out there.
Sorry, guys, we'll get it sent to you, but we can get it.
Yeah, it might help just because like I would have caught the timing of the 300,000 and maybe move the agenda. So, but we can just jump backwards now. Okay, one more. All right, we're here, but we have different numbers now. 300,000 less. And this is going to be a bit of a challenge. So John Connett, you spoke up pretty early on about changing a direction or a model. Can I call you out to see what you were thinking?
You can. You can. I guess I'm torn a little. I mean, I think I guess I'm leaning more toward number 3, where we do use money for rehab and tenant-based rental assistance. The outcome is 60 units. I do like down payment assistance. I got 3 or 4, but number 4, in my opinion, number 4, I know there's a need for tenant-based rental assistance. So I'm leaning more toward the rehab and tenant-based rental assistance because we do need to preserve existing units. That's going to get us the greatest opportunity to keep, in my opinion, keep folks that may be lower income in their homes in a safe environment where code enforcement does not have to step in. So I'll just say that I'm leaning, I do like down payment assistance, and maybe that's a future plan, but at this point I'm leaning toward number 3, but I'm open for discussion from the group.
I think I saw Alice, then Karen. Go.
I just want to echo what John was saying there, really emphasizing rehab and being able to keep people in units, preventing for future dehoming of folks. I know this is a tough call.
Karen, go ahead.
I just, again, mirror exactly what John said. I am struggling between 3 and 4, but feeling that we can get greater production out of 3, but not by much. Both areas we need down payment assistance. We need tenant-based assistance, but the rehab has got to be the priority, particularly in our more rural communities.
Is there any interest in an option that includes rehab, TBRA, and down payment assistance? Or does that deplete the pots too low? And it looked like a Jennifer might support that. Jennifer, go ahead.
That's actually what I was going to suggest. Can we make the numbers work where we can have all three?
It's approximately, if we remove the 300,000, it's approximately 430,000 per bucket if you split it evenly. You get down to 1.3 million roughly. So I guess then if we did that, the question is that sufficient to make any of those programs really strong? And maybe James is over there hustling at what outcomes that might be. Caitlin, go ahead.
I was just going to say, based on what was said earlier, if we say now an even split for all three, and then the need comes back that one needs additional, then it sounds like that money can be provided. But if we don't even include down payment assistance on the table now, and that proves to be a huge need, that would be difficult to move money into.
Okay, John Connett, then Sam.
If we can make the numbers work, I'll fully support that option. I just want to be clear about that. I like that a lot.
Okay, Sam.
I agree with John and Caitlin. And to that point, we were considering an option where TBRA was 25%. If we're breaking up into three, that's actually an increase. So we will know it is in fact effective for TBRA at that funding
Right.
level. So that's it. I think we can say with certainty that it would be impactful, at least for DPA and TBRA.
Okay. Matt
So-
Cable, then Karen.
Real quick point of clarity,
Oh.
real quick point of clarity. So what we're discussing is we're looking at option 3 and adding down payment assistance and funding them all three at equal levels. Is that correct?
We're just kind of touching on, do we want to try and fund three? If we did, what would that look like? And what would a third split be of the remainder? And that comes in around 430K. I don't think we're saying those numbers quite yet. We're just kind of like dancing around. Do we want to have all three?
Okay.
And I had Matt Cable, then Sam, or no, Matt, then Karen, then back to Sam.
So I feel a little bit ill-prepared to make a recommendation. And a lot of that is kind of to one of James' earlier points, understanding what the landscape of the prior awards is. And TBRA has historically been very difficult to deploy, and it takes them a long time to push it out. I'm also, I just want to elevate my concern about having providers in an equitable range across the whole consortium area that are ready to take these funds and do these activities. DPA as a project, one of our providers had some really significant compliance issues, and they're a longtime provider in the space. TBRA has been difficult to deploy in a timely way. Rehab, a lot of the federal regulations keep our regular rehab providers away from these funds. They'll seek other funding. So I'm just concerned that we're putting a lot of funding into buckets that may already be full, where we don't have providers that are ready to take them on, or we don't have providers that are willing to take them on. So I just want to express that those are kind of my concerns with not having a construction component. I feel like construction is the most equitable, meaning I know every jurisdiction at some point in the most recent years has been able to move a construction project because of home funds. And these other projects sometimes are just less viable. So I kind of wanted to elevate, those are like the concerns in talking about having a no construction option, but also having this amount of funding in these other categories.
Great points, Matt. Do you know if if there are projects within Buncombe County that applied for NCHFA?
So we did have one project. What's interesting about it, because of the timing of this cycle, is that they would need to indicate having home support for the
Earlier.
patients already.
Right.
I think what you might see, and this kind of maybe it's a response to some of the earlier discussion about the project we just agreed to funding, is it's possible we could look at, are there other construction projects that are facing the gaps? If we put construction funding available, it's really going to be those projects that already have been awarded that might come back to the table looking for some more funding support. If there were construction funds, I don't know that we'd see a lot of new, maybe a tax exempt bond project. I did have that list pulled up, so I'll look and see if there are any in the
Yeah, I guess because of our lack of spring process, I just don't know. And it sounds like a lot of us don't know. Okay, then I had Karen, then back to Sam. Karen?
Sorry, I had it on mute. Matt, I like your feedback a great deal, but I do support that we look at the three components. And I understand, I'm struggling now with Matt's thoughts that, because I can agree that the TBRA is a hard piece to add to a community where it hasn't been utilized in the past. So, but I see the importance. So I think the level of funding may not be a three-way split.
How about a
put more
350?
money into the rehab?
What if, so these ideas around TBRA are sticking, we get it. It may be that it's hard to fully administrate all those dollars. Maybe it doesn't need more. If we just say 350 for TBRA, that leaves 470,000 for each of the other two pots. I'm just going to try and tag numbers as we discuss. Okay. Sam Starbaum, go ahead.
I actually answered my question.
Okay. Anybody else? Thoughts? Ricky, we haven't heard from you.
I'm kind of leaning toward number 3 because, I think with, like John was saying, there's a lot of damage. There's a lot of deferred maintenance with low-income households. I think we had some nonprofits at our last meeting that were really urging us on rehab. The only thing there's a gap out there is that a lot of federal funds are not eligible to use for HUD housing. So there's probably a lot of manufactured housing that's not eligible. That would require local dollars in that case. So that may be something we need to figure out with these providers as well. Is there a gap in manufactured housing repairs? And is there local funds somewhere in the county or town level to do some of that with a little bit more flexible than the federal funds?
Good thinking. Okay. Anyone else have some thoughts, or do you want me to try and piece together what I'm hearing? I'm hearing general support for having the 3 buckets. I'm hearing general concern and support for not overwhelming TBRA, a program that's already, difficult to fully administrate all funding. And I'm hearing that between the 2 items of rehab and down payment assistance, that rehab is probably the higher need at the time. And then, of course, I don't want to discount Matt Cable's apt point of this means no new construction dollars in this cycle. However, those who are applying for the LIHTC program would have had to have kind of wanted us on their application in May anyways. Matt, you've got your hand up. Go ahead. Correct me if I spoke.
No, I just wanted to share, I had pulled up the list. We don't have any of the 4% projects that were in the queue already. There's potential that we could have some new 4% LIHTC projects that could come on between now and then, but we didn't have any maybe on that bubble of not decided at that time.
Okay. Yeah, good point. Okay. So that makes me think that we should not do more for TBRA than maybe 350,000. And then if we want to lean more heavily into rehab, then down payment, we're looking at splitting about 940,000. So it could be like 550,000 to one and 400,000 to the other. I mean, I'm just going to try and grab some numbers here, but can you guys nod at the screen? Do we think rehab needs more than down payment assistance? I'm seeing nods. Okay, then this is numbers. Okay. Do we like that TBRA gets 350, or how about, do we like 350 at TBRA? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. It's hard as a group. Go ahead, Matt. Cable.
Sorry, just a quick question. James, if you have it, but you may not right on hand, do you know how much is sitting out there in TBRA open right now? Just since that is an area I know we had some dedicated funding to in several years.
It sounded like there was some info available. I don't see their whole room in the mix anymore. Did we lose them? That'd be funny. I think we lost all of this stuff. Okay, Alice, go ahead.
While we're waiting on that, I have a different question just to clarify the numbers that you're throwing out there. Are we getting closer to a rehab at 50% and then a 25-25 TBRA and DPA? Because I think that's what we talked about last month.
No, it sounded like we were
Okay.
talking about having 1 point. Let's get real clear because these numbers aren't.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
You're
This
following.
is Kaylee with the city. We are having a bit of
Okay.
a technical issue. Just 1 second. We're trying to get ourselves unmuted.
Are we still live? Can we keep discussing? Or I guess that's a no. So let's not discuss because we're not live, but I'll share the math so you guys can maybe jot this down. We're going to pull the 300 off the top. So we're talking about 1.290176. So 1.29 million. We are talking about splitting between the three groups. And there goes the numbers. Okay, I've got them. We talked about maybe 350 for TBRA. That leaves $940,000 and $197 to split between the two remaining pots, which then sounded like, did someone just, is that doing it? I'm doing that somehow?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would, we could do say 540,000 in rehab, leaving 400,000 for DPA. It looks like the average down payment as far as outcomes is 25,000 per user. So the rehab, without that screen, I couldn't do the math on what the rehab outcomes might be. How do those numbers? Oh, we've got staff back. Welcome back. Hey, we had so much fun deciding. Good luck with it. Kidding, we haven't voted. What we're talking about is setting 350 aside for TBRA. Matt Cable had asked you if there was any indication of how much remaining TBRA from previous cycles was still out there unused.
I know of at least one contract that we are just now looking to execute for 160,000. There's some remaining on some older contracts. It's really not a whole lot. So we do expect that there is organizational capacity in our community, as well as an identified way for those funds to be used up to, I think what y'all are discussing, that 350 level. I think we wouldn't really propose, that's less than what we proposed at 25% of the allocation. So I think that there is opportunity for that to be used up in the next year.
What about, I mean, if you're, okay, it can be. I guess I was going to say if it was 300,000, would that feel like inadequate? Because it would get us to around 600,000 in rehab. All right, we're going to get stuck on numbers. We are here. So right now what I have tentatively is 350 for TBRA, 540 for rehab, and 400 for down payment assistance. Any questions, comments? Matt Cable, go ahead.
Yeah, it was just a question in response to James' comment. When you say capacity, are capacity providers, is that across the region? Like, are we looking broadly, or is that just providers we typically work with, which are generally Asheville-Buncombe based?
Providers we've typically worked with. It would take some significant technical assistance and further kind of coaching to bring. TBRA is not an easy program to run, to make sure that it is compliant with the home program. It's actually very difficult to administer. A rent register, a tenant selection process, actually getting the funds to the landlord, and working through the payment processing process. So it's not impossible. We would certainly look to continue participating with folks that we've funded in the past, and looking to them to be able to expand their ability to implement those funds at a wider area. But that's why, with the TBRA program, we're not really recommending a across the region tenant-based rental assistance program, because we don't expect that there is capacity or ability to actually move those funds over the next year. If we were to fund it at $1 million, we'd be sitting on a significant pile of cash at the end of the year unused, we would expect.
And the DPA program, just because that was one of the things that Councilwoman was mentioning while you guys were offline, is kind of the ability to support the number of units we are able to support. Can you remind me, is there a cap per unit on those funds? We're just typically seeing DPA at higher than 25,000 per unit to be able to achieve affordability. So I was curious about that.
Well, we outsource it, right? So we had a program representative from MHO in the room last time when we met in person. Matt, you weren't there. And they spoke up and said they were seeking more down payment assistance money for all of our regions. They could administrate it. Please, if there's more, we'll use it. We'll do it. We'll go quick. And they didn't speak to a limit, but what I know is, they have their 80% AMI cap, right? So then you've got 20% of that. So I think it's the 25,000 is coming from an average of their use. And I know when the city was looking at a program, the cap was 40. I don't think this has a cap, but the nature of 80% AMI home cost is driving it. So
Yeah, Matt, I'm not familiar. I'd have to do some digging in the regs on the cap, but we expect it to be like 30,000 is what we're doing on down payment assistance. I think that's where you get the outcome figure on that. So I'd have to do some quick math. It's 24,000. Thanks.
okay, I have a suggestion for us because I think we've been sitting here in this conversation for a while, and I'm looking at our housing study we just got back and kind of these survey data and then what our home dollars can do within it. So we know these are literally our top 3 issues in the renter assistance priorities. It's renter security deposit assistance, right? So TBRA. In the homeowner buyer, the top 2 needed categories are home buyer down payment assistance and home repair. So we're right to keep all 3. And then the split is really about outcomes and ability for the programs to be absorbed. So TBRA, I actually want to suggest we move it to 300,000. And then I want to suggest that we give 400,000 to down payment assistance and the remainder 590,000 to rehab. And it can get all the $197 and pennies too. What do you guys think about that? Based on the research we've just been handed, the limited time we've had to decide, not knowing if we'll have follow-ups from additional developers with existing projects that need more money, knowing we missed the application period and being on those apps for 9%, I think this is our best path forward. Okay.
I can
Go ahead. Go ahead, Karen.
support that, Karen. This is Karen.
You're good with that? Okay. Sam, it looked like you were going to speedily give us a motion there. Ready?
I was going to say, I'm
Okay.
so glad to hear that there's at least consensus that having received this bone report, having seen this, that this is the direction we should go. I'm glad we're all thinking alike here. So for the worst motion I've ever made in my career, I moved to do what Sage just said with the numbers.
That was 300 TBRA, 590 for rehab, and 400 for down payment assistance.
Yeah, like Sage said.
What Sage said.
Yeah.
All right. Can I get a second?
I'll
This is
second that.
Karen.
Everybody wants a second. So, okay, I think it was Karen, maybe just assign it to someone. And we're going to do a roll call vote. As I see you on the screen, Alice,
Aye.
Ricky,
Aye.
John Jones,
Aye.
doesn't sound so excited. John Conant,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Caitlin,
Aye.
Matt Card,
Aye.
Karen Kina,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
Matt Cable.
Montgomery County's votes are in. I don't have to vote.
Oh, sorry again. Aaron,
Aye.
myself, Sage, aye. So that passes. Great. And while we're still closing this item down, let's remember to make a future agenda item for a procedure for previous projects that may come back. So those of you listening at home for all this exciting stuff, we have now moved to item number 7, which is public comment. Who's on the phone? Oh, Jonathan, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to make sure I understood what the next steps were in terms of the action plan. Like when does it go for the city council approval? When is the public comment period?
Coming to us soon. Coming to us at the end of June, right?
Yeah, so this will go to council June 24th as part of our recommendation. We typically see a 30-day comment period on the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. That requirement was reduced to a 7-day comment period. we're trying to get out ahead of it and give more than 7 days, but we received a waiver from HUD this year to allow for a 7-day public comment period on the plan. So we'll be getting that out to allow for the 7-day requirement. So it'll be coming out in the next week or so.
That's awesome. James, if you didn't know, Jonathan Jones used to be in your role. That's why he knows all your duties.
I know, John, we talked about it, and we appreciate all your feedback on this. And there's a wide and deep level of experience in this consortium, and we appreciate all y'all's input on these programs. And we appreciate helping us kind of streamline. It seems like there is definitely a wide need across the consortium for different types of programs. The staff recommendations were to come and just do 2 programs, but we've come out of this meeting with 3, and that's okay. But I appreciate y'all allowing us to take a more streamlined focus and all the feedback. Thank you.
All right. Well, hopefully we didn't create too much stress on the administrative end for having a 3rd program instead of just 2. But do we have anyone who's doing the phones today for city staff? Did we just lose them? No. Okay. Sophia, anybody, do we have callers?
Logan told me there's no one in the queue.
Logan says no one in the queue. Okay. Well, then that is our last item on the agenda. So we can conclude. Any final comments or thoughts? Okay. Well, James has been new, his crew, this is, new to you, this home consortium group. So thanks for bringing us good materials to review and being able to answer our questions so we could get to some sound decisions today. And thank you everybody for your time. And
are we looking at August for our next meeting?
I don't know if the date's out, but I think so. And
We're gonna look to August for the next meeting. We'll be working to get that on calendars soon.
maybe overlap with potential Patrick Bowen visit, maybe not. And then I'll happily, or James or I will update you as to how the council meeting goes. And I wish I could make balloons right now. I don't know what I did, but you all have a great day and thanks for your time. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.